Şimdi Informatica Kıdemli Çözümler Pazarlama Direktörü Clarke Patterson'ı kürsüye davet ediyorum. Dear Clarke, stage is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me in the back? Yes? Sounds like it now. All right, I'm very, very excited to be here, joining you today from our corporate headquarters in California. And I wanted to start off and say, if you haven't already got the sense of it from the presentations you saw this morning from both Yüksel and Charles, this is a very exciting time to be in the data business. Whether you are working at it in your own organizations or providing solutions as we are, there's so much happening in this particular area. There's so much value that can be had out of data today that it seems like the possibilities of what we can do are endless. So I'm going to talk initially about kind of the broader spectrum of analytics and what's happening in that particular area and how it's shifting. And later on today, we'll drill into big data specifically and some of the forces that we're seeing there and really how we can start to unlock real potential with data in our organizations. So let me start with a simple comparison. If you look back at the automotive industry over the course of its lifetime, it's really transformed from something that was very manual, very error-prone, not exactly a mass scale type of industry, where we were building cars for a very small portion of the market. They were done very, very in rudimentary ways, where we had a lot of labor dealing with very customized solutions to what ultimately was the end product of a vehicle. Over the course of time, as the interest in cars and automotive started to pick up in society, we identified the fact that we need to improve the processes by which we delivered these things. Otherwise, we would just not be able to keep up with the pace of the need in the market. So Henry Ford, in the early 1900s, created the first production line assembly, which we see in the middle screen here. And the idea was, if we're going to serve a broader section of the market, we need to drive some efficiency in our process such that we can get more vehicles off the line and start to improve the quality of them at the same time. So we had this moving set of functionality where people still came on board and they would deal with particular components. And the end result was a tremendous amount of efficiency, an increase in quality, and the ability to serve a product out to the market at a scale that we just simply couldn't do before. If you bring that all the way to today, that same idea of innovation in the automotive space has changed dramatically. We've shifted away from a highly, an automated assembly line approach, as we see in the middle here, to something that is still assembly line driven, but it's much more automated. The people are no longer in the picture. It's all driven by machines and robotics. We're very much sensor driven. We can respond quickly to change as it happens. And the end result is that we can do automotive manufacturing at a very, very large scale. What's maybe not obvious in the picture is not only are we able to do these things in a large scale, we're also able to produce these vehicles for a number of different use cases, if you will. So if you think about a certain type of vehicle, in the United States, you could pick like a Toyota Camry, which is a four-door sedan. And you can buy that specific car in a gasoline version. You can buy it in a hybrid version, which is gasoline and electric. And then at some point in the future, undoubtedly, we'll be able to get other types of use cases. So the efficiencies that we've built into the process have allowed us to meet the needs, meet the scale, but also give us a tremendous amount of flexibility to have variations of that particular product at the end of the line. Data integration, I would suggest, is going through a similar transformation. So this year will mark the 20-year anniversary for Informatica in the market. And when we first entered, we were looking at a market space that was dealing with data-related issues, but in a highly specialized, highly hand-coded fashion. So we would have a number of applications, a number of systems. People realized that they needed to pull the data out of those systems to do some sort of analytics and some sort of analysis over time. But there really wasn't a set of tools. So we took people, we got them skilled up in specific programming languages, and we had them write custom integration between system to system. Obviously, got the job done, but as more systems came on board, the ability to scale that type of operation was no longer going to be adequate. So that's where Informatica came in. We create this portfolio of products that helps us integrate information much more effectively. We have tools that can automate a lot of those processes, take the burden off the individuals, and we start to get into a model of reuse. So we now have standardized tools that we can start to customize and reuse integrations on a broader scale. Moving forward, particularly with the introduction of big data, there's a fundamental shift in where this whole industry needs to go. So not only do we need to move from the standardized tools and being much more capable of scaling as we buy other companies and more systems come online, we need to think about new use cases and new scenarios that we've never dealt with before. So we need to start to think about how we can take a template-driven approach, learn from best practices, automate some of these processes, become more sensor-driven so that the data integration that supports our business becomes somewhat of an afterthought. We don't really think about it so much as a process anymore, but just something that is at the core of our business that is out there and that can react much more effectively than what it could be. So this is the conversation that I want to take us through today. What does that transformation look like, and what does it mean for our businesses moving forward? So Gartner Research recently published a report that suggested that analytics is going to be the core of our organization moving forward. So if you think back to Charles' slides a few minutes ago, when we had that evolution of data consumption over the years, on the far left-hand side of the slide, there was application-centric portion of data in our business space. And you could argue that today we are still very much business application-centered, and we treat data and analytics somewhat as a byproduct, something that comes out of these applications. We can do some sort of analysis on it, but we're still far too focused on the applications. We're supporting the finance function, we're supporting the sales function, the marketing function, and streamlining those processes that support all those parts of the organization. Gartner suggests that as we move forward, and I would say that probably today we're already at this point, we will no longer be focused at the core of our business on the business applications, but rather the analytics that come out of those business applications. And in doing so, we can become much more intelligent and reactive to the needs and opportunities in our market. That same transformation, again, Gartner suggests, will cause us to look at analytics in an entirely different way. So if you think about data analytics today, majority of us are kind of down in these bottom two boxes. So we're looking at kind of past behaviors. What happened over our sales patterns in a particular region for the last month, for the last quarter, for the last year? Can I look at all my customers that bought products over the last 3 years, and were there patterns in those types of things? All these kind of past viewing behaviors of how we do analysis today. As data becomes more and more central, and it becomes, the automation of the data integration process becomes more critical, we can shift how we leverage analytics in our business from not only looking backwards, but starting to look forwards. What are those things that our customers are going to want us to bring from a product standpoint to market? Can we think about those things before they do? And as such, can we use that as competitive advantage relative to our peers in the market? So this shift is very, very important. And obviously, the way we consume data and make it useful up to the organization is going to be very, very critical. So let's continue that a little bit further. So if we are moving away from a past-looking analytics environment to something that is much more prescriptive and predictive in nature, then it would follow suit that the way we do analytics needs to change as well. So we can't really think about things after the fact anymore. We need to have, if I can use that automotive comparison again, we need to have that sensor-based approach where we can learn about things as they occur. So we're not looking backwards all the time. We know about them now so that we can react faster. At the same time, we need to make sure that we're dealing with increasing regulatory pressures. So it seems like every industry nowadays has some requirements around the consumption or the protection or the serving up of information. And we need to be sure that we're not leaving these things behind as we make this shift. And then, as I mentioned before, this kind of detection and response to specific threats so that we can minimize the downtime on our data information infrastructure is going to be central to be able to do these things moving forward. So this shift in emphasis from being able to do more analytics and doing analytics differently, away from hindsight to foresight, if you will, has really driven this change in the market. And we see some similar icons to what Charles had on his slides. There is a whole new world of analytics that has emerged. And you might argue it's one of the most significant data-related industry changes we have seen in the past 15 to 20 years. So we've moved away from just having a centralized enterprise data warehouse to having other capabilities. Hadoop as a big data processing environment. We've got data warehouse appliances coming out, in-memory technologies, pushing things up to the cloud. People still want to build departmental specific data marts. A lot of different needs that have arisen as we move from that application-centric organization to analytics-centric organization. And these all present a very specific set of challenges that we need to think about. So if that's the case, and we have all these different types of analytics and different types of processing behaviors that we need to consider, then it would also follow suit that there are different ways in which we need to think about analytics within our organization. Now, most of you are probably dealing with kind of traditional on-premise data warehouse, data mart type analytics approaches. We're dealing with finance-based functions. We're dealing with sales and marketing types of analytics. But with the advent of things like Hadoop in particular, there's a massive shift towards big data and the types of analyses that we can use there to become much more prescriptive. I would like to ask, if I can, just by a show of hands, how many people are planning a big data project in your organization in the next, I don't know, say next 1 year? Many? Nobody. Wow. All right. Well, I'll argue in a slide or two that there is a significant shift in the market where we're going to see a change. So we go away from traditional on-premise to where we're talking about kind of operational related analytics, those finance sales types of things that I mentioned, things that are very, very departmental focused, to the big data where we're starting to talk about innovation and how we can really start to uncover new opportunities and learn about behaviors that we couldn't otherwise. The 10 terabytes of data per flight, as Charles mentioned. If you have all that information and you can mine it and you can do things with it, you can uncover ways to drive operational efficiency or new revenue opportunities, depending on the scenario. And then there's also the cloud and hybrid situation that we also need to think about, where we're starting to put information up into the cloud, and we're really focusing on kind of the self-service and cost optimization that has to provide. Each of these three scenarios are really going to be central to analytics in our organization moving forward, and they come with their own set of challenges that we need to keep in mind. Now, the motivation for each is going to be different. So if you think about our traditional on-premise environment, it used to be the case that we would deploy a data warehouse and we were focused on performance. We would try to get data in there as fast as we can. When we ran a report, we wanted that information to come out as quickly as possible. We had large amounts of data, what we thought were large at the time, so we had scale challenges. But really, the on-premise traditional data warehouse, as I'm calling it, the focus of that is going to change. That type of environment has been around for some time. And so it moves away from making sure that we can manage performance and scale. Those things are still important, to how we can start to drive optimization improvements on that type of infrastructure. So we're looking for efficiency in our development environment. If we need to make some sort of change, are we equipped such that we can do that without having a real long, drawn-out process? Can we start to serve up real-time information to those people that need it the most? When we think about cloud, we're talking all about flexibility and cost savings, because as we push those things up into software as a service environments, you don't have all those types of same costs that you would be presented with otherwise. There's also a massive opportunity from a business self-service standpoint. We see a lot of organizations that are shifting to cloud-based analytics because it allows business users to be able to take matters into their own hands and do their own types of analyses without having to wait on an IT department to go through changes in a data warehouse, pass that information over to a business analyst who can subsequently get it up to the line of business user. On the big data side of things, and I will talk a little bit more about big data this afternoon, we're really concerned about volume, variety, and velocity. We have so much information coming at us. It's coming to us at a speed that we have never seen before, and it's in all different types of shapes and sizes. So we need to think about how we're going to be able to manage all those types of things. Now, when I asked earlier, nobody put up their hands to say they were planning a big data project. But if you look at various market research, we will see that across those three areas of focus and analytics, there will be a fundamental shift in where investment happens in your organization, if not in the next 12 months, but at some point in the near future. So the current state really has a lot of emphasis on, let me move over here so I'm not in the way, has a lot of emphasis from an investment point of view on our on-premise systems. Those things are very, very core. We need to get out those finance reports. We need to get all that information up to sales and marketing. And we're not seeing a significant shift there yet. There is some interest in moving into the cloud, and there's challenges there from a data security standpoint, but there's obviously benefits to be had as well. So we're seeing some increase in investment on that front. But for the most part, the big data investment is exploratory at best. And so there's not a very, very big investment that we're seeing as of yet. But I was reading a Forrester research report recently that said within the next 5 years, the shift of analytics from our traditional on-premise environments to our big data environments will move something towards a 60% investment in big data in the next 5 years, as I said. So really, the triangle and where we focus is going to turn. So the on-premise side of things is not going to be a big area where we're going to spend a lot of time. We're going to be doing things like making sure that our systems are running effectively. We're going to be putting real-time measures in place. We're going to be starting to sensor-base that type of thing so that we don't really have to worry about it anymore. Instead, the investment in our analytics is going to shift into those new computing platforms so that we really can start to become prescriptive and predictive around the behaviors of our customers and product behavior, or product patterns and things of that nature. So we need to take a simple approach to make all of this happen. So we think back to the automotive example that I started with. We have this kind of car-like comparison where if we think about it from a goods standpoint, before a car starts, it's raw, unmanufactured product. So we've got steel and things like that. So the raw data might look something to that effect. And we need to transform that in some way into real useful business information. So there's some steps that we take to make that happen. Now, traditionally, what we've done is kind of just gone and thrown a bunch of technology at it. We would have a product for extracting, transforming, loading. We would have a product for data quality. We would have a product for discovering information. But what we need to think about is, how can we start to drive disciplines across all of those enabling technologies that we will ultimately use to move from the left-hand side of the screen to the right. And it comes down to 3 principles. First is we need to consider, the deployment or the development process. And can we use things like a virtual data machine or Vibe that Charles just introduced so that we don't have to reprogram things every single time we move from one system to another. From a deployment standpoint, we need to have the utmost flexibility so where our environments are going to change, we can react very quickly to them, and we don't have to keep going back and rewriting things. And then probably most important, or at least I think most important, is from that governance standpoint. Are we doing anything to manage systems after we've implemented them? So I see a lot of times, a lot of conversations that I have with our customers is they will spend a lot of time building a new data warehouse perhaps, or going through an application migration project. And they get very focused on just the scope of that particular set of activities. But what they don't think about is what is going to happen to all that information, all that transformation that we do as part of that process 6 months from now or 12 months from now. Is there an opportunity to put in some measures so that we can learn about our data through that activity moving forward and start to govern it more effectively? So we need to have that ability to kind of see what's happening so that we can react to things as they occur. So there's a number of capabilities that Informatica provides across these pillars. So it starts with kind of, the definition of what does our information look like, starting to kind of build data models, understanding the information that we have across all of our sources and how that's going to go into those models. We then would like to be able to prototype and design things in an effective manner so that we can make sure that we're not just creating an integration, putting it into production, and assuming it's going to deliver the expected results. We want to get a little bit more systematic about how we do it. We also need to cleanse information because as you certainly know, when you start to pull information from a number of different systems, it's in all different types of shapes. The quality varies greatly, and we need to think about those things and change it as it moves. And then perhaps most importantly is test these things. Testing is so often overlooked, but it's really, really important to make sure that we're pushing out the right integrations on an ongoing basis. From a deployment standpoint, we need the ability to move from point A to point B. We need to do it very fast, and we need that flexibility to be able to drop it into any environment that we have today or might not know about tomorrow. And again, this is also Vibe related, where if you think about Hadoop, and Charles made a statement that the integrations that customers of ours wrote 10 years ago are able to run untouched in a Hadoop environment. Well, Hadoop, nobody even really knew of maybe 5 years ago. So if we didn't know about Hadoop 5 years ago, what else is coming down the road for us in the next 5 years, the next 2 years? We still don't even know about it. But if you had some mechanism where that didn't even matter, that's what the Vibe value proposition is from us and to you. And then from the management point of view, it's all about confidence and all about that governance. So we need to be able to monitor what's happening. We need to quickly be able to troubleshoot where those issues are and then secure and retain information as it applies to specific policies, particularly around compliance and risk. So one of our customers who's gone through this transformation is Condé Nast. And I hope that I have brands on here that everyone is familiar with. But Condé Nast is a very big publishing company. They have magazines such as GQ, Golf Digest, Wired magazine for anyone who's really into music. My wife really likes Vogue magazine, and the list goes on. But if you're familiar at all with the standard print media types of industries, it's gone through a significant change over the past several years. With online content, mobile devices, there's really been a fundamental shift from where these types of organizations need to get their revenue. So whereas before they would have a lot of their advertising, a lot of their revenue would come from specifically printed magazines, things that you could put your hands on, more and more people are no longer buying those types of things. Newspapers are going away rapidly. The number of types of magazines that people actually sell or organizations sell is going down dramatically. Instead, people are starting to consume information on web pages. They're doing it from their iPads or their Android tablets or on their mobile devices, whatever it may be. So these types of shifts in behavior is exactly what Condé Nast had to really think about and address in order to survive. And for them, It was all about understanding their customer behaviors across these new types of platforms. So they needed to think about how they were going to manage their social interaction data around as people start to comment on articles that they were reading. They needed to understand, were there behaviors that they could surface as people were using mobile devices to consume things? When they're on the internet and doing different things, are there behaviors that they can learn? And it's a multi-channel environment that they suddenly needed to capitalize on. So interesting in that, there was a lot of, initially it was all just about understanding their customers' behaviors from a printed scenario to a much more digital online type of market. But as they went into these types of things, they learned that there was opportunity in social information. People would comment on specific articles within some of their publications, and they didn't have that level of insight before. So they can push that information back down into the editorial staff to say, these types of articles are very good, these ones are not. People really like this one, they're sharing it a lot, whatever it may be, and that can help to bring much more targeted types of content out to their customer base. They're also able to do very innovative things with their mobile devices. So not only did they create mobile applications where people could read the magazines, but they were able to augment what they knew about customer behavior because of the fact that the mobile device itself had some sort of machine-generated information as that information was consumed. So Charles mentioned the Internet of Things. Well, a mobile device is one component of the Internet of Things. So if you think about, if I was to read an article on my iPhone while I'm here in Turkey, it knows that I'm specifically here in Istanbul and I might be at this particular store or this location and things of that nature. And that's all additional insight into customer behaviors that can then be used to draw specific targeted incentives, perhaps, in terms of new offers that you might have. So one example that they described to me was in the Golf Digest world, where if someone's reading Golf Digest and perhaps they're in Palm Springs, California, which if you don't know is a very big golf community, if they have a partner with them who subscribes to advertising in one of their printed media pieces, they can actually use that geographic information that they've captured from the mobile device and push out some sort of promotion for perhaps a spa package or some other golf discount at a particular golf course in that region. So this is an excellent example of how analytics has shifted from, for this company in particular, where they went into it just needing to understand the behaviors of their customers from how they're purchasing, and suddenly were able to broaden the reach and have changed dramatically how they go about analyzing customer behaviors. So I wanted to just summarize with kind of a few key takeaways. So the first one is that our data environment has changed, and what I said before was, it's an exciting. It is a very exciting to be in the data business. I don't think we have seen a transformation like what we saw on Charles's slide in a long time, and data is coming at us at a very, very rapid pace, and we need to start to do new things to be able to address the volume, variety, and velocity of it in our analytics moving forward. At the same time, we need a simplified approach. And Informatica, as we saw, has this platform where we focus on taking the complexity out by way of our virtual data machine. That allows us to focus on the three principles of development, deployment, and management of information, regardless of the technology component that you have, so that as you deploy it, you can have the confidence that whatever changes are coming for your specific organization, whatever technology innovations that might be coming that we don't know about yet, you will be able to leverage and capitalize those immediately and really kind of tap into that potential of that information. And then you also need that single platform. So Informatica really does focus on a single platform across the breadth of capabilities, but we also need to do so for different scenarios. So you might have, entry-level needs. We have products that are focused specifically on departmental use cases, where you can download it from the web, get some of these Power Center capabilities, use them for a specific purpose, and then scale that over time. At the same time, depending on your enterprise need, if you have an industrial strength solution need, we offer that set of capabilities as well. So from an end-to-end standpoint, really, we believe that we are at the center of analytics moving forward and have a great opportunity to address the changing needs. So I want to thank you for your time. I am going to talk this afternoon a little bit more about the big data topic. But I wanted to really just kind of part with thinking about analytics, thinking about, for me, it's really the shift from the application-centric organization to the analytics-centric organization. And if I can have you think about one thing as you leave, just don't think about data as kind of a byproduct or something that just comes out of our application. Start to look at how you can use that information, use that data to your advantage, and rethink the way you use your analytics in your organization, and it'll help you be much more successful moving forward. Thank you very much.